Hi, everyone. Oop, got it. Welcome to our session titled Women in Technology, Mentorship and Career Opportunities. My name is Kimber Brookstein. I'll be the moderator today. Super happy to be here. A little bit about me. I've been with Intuit now almost 5 years. I'm based in our San Diego office. So a huge appreciation from San Diego and growing up here. I am one of the leaders of Tech Women at Intuit, and what that is an internal initiative that's focused on attracting, engaging, and developing our women and underrepresented minorities in technical roles. So I'm super passionate about providing these resources and tools, and I'm essentially in service to our tech ecosystem. So I work with these awesome leaders, Bridget and Crystal, and we'll get a little bit more into their journeys in a moment. But for those of you who don't know who we are at Intuit, or might not be familiar, we are the global technology platform powering prosperity with TurboTax, QuickBooks, Mint, Credit Karma, and MailChimp. So hopefully you all are doing your taxes with TurboTax right now. We use our software engineering and data teams that apply and intersect data and technology really to build our solutions for over 100 million customers worldwide. So we are producing these awesome products all in a goal to power prosperity. And what that is financial freedom, essentially. So you can learn more about Intuit later, but the goal of this session is to bring in, some of our true life experiences around career growth, mentorship, and how that can hopefully help you in your journey. And to set the context, we'll really have a guided conversation for the next 40 minutes with Crystal and Bridget. We welcome you to put thoughts in the chat, any questions, and we'll hold the end of the session for open Q&A and conversation. This is an intimate group, so don't be shy. Feel free to engage and be part of the conversation with us. And we'll get to that at the end. So with that, I would love our panelists to share a little bit about themselves. We'll start with Bridget and have Crystal follow. Just share your name, your role at Intuit, and maybe a fun fact. This is something we love to do at Intuit. We like to throw in an icebreaker, usually to make someone be caught off guard, but Bridget and Crystal knew this was coming. So there's not that element of surprise, but maybe a hidden talent to share. So I will throw that over to Bridget first.
All right, thanks, Kimbra. And it's great to be with all of you today. I'm excited to be sharing my experiences and also learning from you. My name is Bridget Kimball. I am the VP and Chief Architect of our consumer group at Intuit. So that is primarily the TurboTax and Mint product that you're probably all familiar with. I have been at Intuit for 4 years now. Fun fact about me, I had 2. So one is people are sometimes surprised to learn that I really love construction. So if you need something torn out, remodeled, retiled, I love to do that. If you have a song from the late 80s or early 90s that's kind of in the new wave grunge vein of music, I can probably identify it within the first 10 seconds. My husband laughs at me constantly about that. So trivia night. So
I just learned 2 new facts.
A little bit about myself.
Love it. What about you, Crystal?
Good afternoon. And again, thank you for having me here. My name is Crystal Robinson-Pipersberg, and I'm one of the group managers in data engineering. I've been here at Intuit for 23 years. This is my 23rd year. I graduated with a BS in computing information systems, which is kind of a cross, half business, half computer science. And then I have an MBA in human resource management with the emphasis on law. So if I wasn't into software, I would love to be a lawyer, a corporate lawyer. It's my other interest. Fun fact, when I was younger, I always want to be the first. I come from a big family and I am the youngest of 8. So I'm struggling to get like noticed. I like being the first. So I wanted to be the first famous female saxophonist. I loved playing the saxophone when I was
Wow.
7th, 8th grade. The funny fact is I was not allowed to play in the house, to practice in the house until I learned my first song. My dad made me play in the backyard. My first song was Beat It.
Oh, I love it. Oh my gosh. I'm going to use this fun fact, hidden talent question moving forward. Oh, I just learned so many new things. I love it. Well, Crystal, we'll stay with you as we talk about you being here 23 years at Intuit. How did you find yourself in the role you're in today? And can you share just a little bit about your journey line up until your role now as group manager?
My role today. Well, I'll say my role today was actually a side effect of networking and some of the women that I worked with in Intuit in that 20 years. I started here as an Oracle DBA, and I've worked in a lot of the spaces in IT. I started in IT. And so I did my rounds in IT, system administration, asset and configuration management. I did quite a few things there, sometimes by choice, sometimes by need. So being able to, and just taking opportunities that are given to you, I think is where I started. And then about 6 years ago, I moved to CG to work on the TurboTax desktop team. I was looking for something a little bit different. I went to go back to software engineering. So I started managing the TurboTax desktop team. And then I moved to the TKE team, which is the team that builds the engine that all of our tax products sit on top of. So I did that for a while. And then data has always been something that I have loved and liked. I'm a very logical type person. So facts is what I like, and data is all about facts. And so a friend of mine who happens to be my boss now was telling me, hey, we have a position in data engineering. I think it'll be a good fit for you. And so I started looking into it, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe it's time for me to make that move. And that's how I came back to the data space and started working in data engineering 2 years ago.
Awesome. And I love how your journey paints the picture of internal mobility. So for everyone in this call who might be thinking about their next role or how they can grow within a company, I think your journey really shows that you can follow your interests, whether it be a different function, a different type of technology. You've been able to kind of create this path within the same company and organization for such a long time. But Bridget, your path with only being here 4 years, I know has been very different. And if we could learn a little bit more about kind of where you started and came from to now how you got here as VP Chief Architect, that'd be awesome.
Sure, that'd be. I will do my best. So, my background is in electrical and computer engineering, both my BS and my MS. My first job out of school actually was working on communication satellites. I was really excited about doing something with space. It didn't really matter what, I just wanted to be in that. So I did that for a couple of years and then realized that while I loved it, there were only about 4 companies in the US where I could work at really, to have that kind of experience. And so started looking for something else. So from that, I actually moved in and was fortunate enough to be an engineer at a small company in San Diego called General Instrument that really invented digital television. So we, weren't sure, could we take these video signals that are coming through, the analog signals and converting it to digital, compressing it, and then offering different ways to consume it. So now, the reason that we can stream video on our phones is because some of that fundamental work that I was lucky enough to be part of. From that, I moved into cable television, high-speed data, and after that, ended up at Intuit. My background has always, which is very different, it's a large software, distributed software product to customers, directly to customers in the home, versus what I was before. A lot of it was more kind of back-end infrastructure. I always knew that I gravitated towards the big picture. So the roles that I picked were more along the lines of what were considered like architecture, system engineering roles, just where it wasn't just one thing that you worked on. You had to work on a lot of things and understand how things fit together. So I would say that has kind of guided my career. Just that's what my interests are. But I've actually moved between being, an individual contributor to being a people leader. And so before I came to Intuit, I was actually a SVP and GM of a pretty large engineering organization at Comcast, but small enough that we were able to really have a lot of fun and get things done. And so coming to Intuit was a great opportunity for me to learn about SaaS, what does running software in the cloud really mean? And the role that was available for me was, more of a chief architect role with a very small team. Over the years, I've picked up more, and so I now lead all our platform engineering within that organization. So I've got maybe about 125 people now. So I would say that I've worked on a lot of different things. Crystal's been able to do it in the same company. I moved around, but got that different experience that way.
That's great. And that transitions nicely into the next question of, when we talk about values or attributes that draw you into a company, I guess for the folks on the phone, how would that compare with what you were looking for, maybe, as exiting higher education and looking for your first role versus what you look for now when it comes to what makes you excited and what fuels your energy when it comes to company culture and just like attraction of a role?
Do you want me to answer that, start, or?
You will each answer it, so
okay.
you can go, or Crystal can chime in first.
Okay, I'll go, and then Crystal can follow up. So like I think I said that earlier, my first job, I was really I wanted to work in something in space. And so it was a job that offered that plus salary. I didn't even think about company culture. I wasn't actually even aware of company culture, to be honest. It was just, I need a job. And that was really how I picked, and not a lot of, nuanced thinking around that. As I've moved around, the way that I think about my career moves is quite a bit different. I mean, obviously, you're always, want to make sure that you're compensated fairly for the work that you do, but I am more interested in what's the scope of the role, what's my ability to have a large impact and learn. I would say that, and then when you interview with companies, you really have that opportunity to learn about their culture when you ask them questions about how do projects come together? What would you expect out of me in the first 90 days? How do people, what's the organization structure look like? And so I'm much more interested now in what is the company like, if you view it as an organism, what is it like, and what would my role be within that? And then for myself, just, is it something new? I find that if it's something new, I'm like, this is cool. I'm going to learn something from it and take my experience from before and dive in.
Yeah. I think I can say the same as Bridget. Like when I started, I didn't think about the company or the culture. I was thinking more about, oh, okay, what do I want to do? What do I want to learn? My first job was, before it was called software engineering, it was programming. And I'm not a people person. I'm more of an introvert, and I wanted something where it would be just me and the computer. And I was going to create and make software to change the world just by myself in this room. That's what I was looking for. But now, as I have grown and mature, I do definitely look for what can I learn? What can I share? And can I make a difference is what I usually look for, and the positions and the teams that I'm going with. Something that is really important now to me, now that I am aware of company culture and who am I going to work with and what's their footprint or worldview. Is it something that I can relate to? Is it something I can get behind and help move forward? So when it comes to those things, I want to make a difference and I want to learn. And so those are the two important things, and along with the people.
That's awesome to hear. And I feel like everyone I speak to or ask that question to when it comes to someone I work with and a colleague has a very similar type of answer where they want to be passionate, they want to be challenged, and they want to do meaningful work. So I think it doesn't matter what function you represent. Like me as a program manager outside of the tech ecosystem, it's the same type of thing. I want to do work that fuels me. I want to enjoy it. And I want to be challenged. And at least the work that I do is very challenging in the sense of equitable programs and resources and tools for everyone across the company, right? And trying to build that inclusion when it comes to team dynamic and just the day-to-day experience of all employees. So it's work I'm super passionate about, and it's work that's part of our DNA at Intuit, and it's embedded in our culture. And I think I'll tag on Crystal and start with you on this next question of when we talk about the work and the different projects and the people you work with and collaboration. How do you make sure each voice is heard, and how do the teams collaborate within your organization?
Right. So I would say each group is very different. And so once you come into an organization or a group, it's like start getting to know the people, start understanding what's going on. And then there are going to be people who are very outspoken, and there are going to be people who are kind of more laid back and they don't speak out. But as a leader in this space, I actually try to get to know each individual on my team. I try to get to know how they like to interact, because some people don't call them out and don't put them in front of people. But if I've had one-on-ones and I talked with them about topics, I can make sure their voice is heard, because I can actually represent their ideas when they don't want to. Or if it's someone who does very outspoken, you ask them, you create a number of ways for people to be able to share, whether it's in a bigger setting where you're having brainstormings and conversations, or it's in a small setting where you're having one-on-ones and you're asking questions and sometimes you're pulling information. But also, I mean, simple surveys and feedback mechanisms, and also talking to others around them to get feedback on how well a project is going or how well it's not going and what the issues are. So there's a number of ways of doing that and making sure the voices are heard. Also understanding what each of the individuals like. And what motivates them. And that helps me as a manager to be able to like, oh, there's this new project that's coming up, and I know such and such is interested in it. I can actually bring them into a new initiative or project because I took the time to get to know them, to understand what they wanted and what they're looking for out of their career and job and day-to-day work. Hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah, no, it did. And that's so great to hear, because it's true. Everyone's so different. We have different styles and preferences of communicating and different comfort levels. And part of being able to do the best work of your life is being able to be yourself. And that includes the way you contribute, the way you share ideas. And so being mindful of each individual is super empowering for the team. So Bridget, same question for you. And then we will start to bring in some mentorship aspects into the conversation.
Yeah, so I would say, everything that Crystal said, I completely agree with. One of the things that I, learned as I became a manager is, well, even if you're just a lead of something, learning what's important to the people that you work with and learning what style they have for how they want to communicate and share is becomes kind of a secret weapon in terms of you're able then to tailor the way you work with that person, the way you communicate with them so that they feel heard and comfortable. I often use the technique that Crystal talked about, where you're in a meeting and someone's quiet, but I know they have something to say or they have a good opinion. I try to draw it out, but in a way that, making it safe and easy to do so. And so once you get into the kind of roles where you're directing people like that, it can be, it takes a lot of work to get to know everyone. But once you understand what people are looking for and what the style that suits them, you can, and then I adjust my style to for each one so that they're getting what they need.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's something that is super, super important, I think, in any role, is having a leader that understands you and understands the way you work. So the extra effort that's put in by managers and leaders who take the time to ensure that just provides such a better working environment, and hopefully a happier and healthier one as well. And so when we think about what you have learned in your career journeys up to this point, what is something you wish you would have known after leaving higher education and entering the workforce, whether it be a piece of advice or something you learned along the way? And we'll start with Bridget and then go to Crystal.
Sure. So one thing that I didn't realize and I learned along the way is I was a really good student, had really good grades, and and I thought that would propel me. That doesn't actually. I mean, it's just assumed that you know what you need to do the job. It's kind of table stakes. Everyone, they didn't hire you because they didn't, if they didn't think that you would have the skills to do the work. And so I learned that my success is actually dependent on how I work with others and developing productive relationships that allow collaboration to make 1 + 1 = 2.5, so that you are leveraging your skills together. And I did not really realize that, probably for the first 2 years that I was working. The other things that are really important is your ability to communicate both verbally and written. I know they probably talk about that in school, but it is key to your success at work. And also demonstrating the ability to learn and master new things quickly, because particularly if you work in STEM or, any field in STEM, in tech, math, the sciences, what you learn today in the future, not too distant future, is kind of like old hat, irrelevant. Things change. And so your skill is in how adaptable you are and how quickly you can master something new.
I love that. Crystal, anything for life words for us?
Definitely double down on everything that Bridget said. Exactly like she said, you come out, or I came out thinking that, oh, if I just did good work, I know if I just fixed this problem, or I gave this best solution. And you think that your own knowledge and experience is what's going to take you to that next level or that next place that you want to be. And I found out, no, I talked about a little bit how I wanted it to be just me and the computer in that room coding. I learned that's not the way it works. You do need to network. You do need to have mentors. Another thing that is you need to advocate for yourself as well, and know what you want, but also understand why you want it. You kind of have to do that deep dive into yourself and understand what motivates you so that you can, and yes, it will change, but knowing yourself, knowing what you're capable of, knowing what your areas of improvement are actually takes you a long way, because you can focus on the things you know you need to focus on, and the things that you don't need to focus on that are your second nature or part of your DNA, you leave those things. It's like, okay, I don't need to invest in that, but I need to invest in this area that I know I don't do well. And then similar to what Bridget said, consistently learning, I've learned that critical thinking is the most important thing. It's not about what programming language I know or what piece of software I know, because like she said, everything changes constantly. So if I'm in the mode of learning and I can critically think of how to solve problems, then I can keep up with technology. And it doesn't matter what that technology is.
I love that. What valuable pieces of insight. Like these are pieces of wisdom that we definitely will take through with us along each of our career journey lines. And one of the main pieces of advice that I give back, and one of my main learnings, is the value of building and maintaining relationships in your network. I think for those who dialed in, you've already heard just in their experience of their journey lines that their roles were from someone they knew, a friend that had an opening in Crystal's case and said she should take a look at it. And these relationships, that's something I didn't learn when I was in school, was the value of just your network. I go to quote, your network is your net worth. And that's something I wish I knew earlier on in my own career. Now, I'm way more engaged and involved in the community and organizations that I'm passionate about, internally within Intuit with our ERGs, and externally with local organizations that support some of the causes that we're involved in with women in tech and underrepresented groups in tech. But that's something I wish I knew earlier. I feel like I would have had a lot more resources and built natural mentorship, mentors. And it's a segue kind of into that conversation of, we've developed our careers, for those on the call who are in higher education, possibly, looking to see where their path will lead. Some insight on advice is that company culture aspect too, of what are companies doing to support women in tech and to support development. So the topic of mentorship's extra special to me because in my role at Intuit, I actually launched one of our first formal structured mentorship programs for tech women and underrepresented groups in tech. So it's a program I'm super proud of, and we're now 4 years running in terms of actually piloting in San Diego and then scaling globally across the entire company. So with that, we're gonna kind of pivot into that conversation of mentorship. And when you first started in your careers, one, did you have a mentor? And now as an experienced, accomplished leader, why is being a mentor so important? And we'll start with Bridget on this one.
All right. So to the first question, did I have a mentor early in my career? No. I would say I was probably 7 or 8 years into my career before I really think I had someone who I would say is a mentor. And so, I probably made some mistakes along the way until I had someone giving me some counsel and could have approached things differently. What's really important about having a mentor is it's a safe environment for someone to give you feedback. Actually, they're invested in just helping you be better at whatever it is that you're going after, and be a sounding board to help you think about what you want to do next. What are the gaps that you have? But what's even more important is if there's someone who becomes your sponsor, and those are two different things. The sponsor is someone who will actually put a little bit of themselves on the line to advocate for you. So a mentor might say, oh, I heard there's a role at this other group you might want to look at. Sponsor will say, I know about this role. Let me introduce you to the leader over there, and let me tell you more about what's important to them, and I will, put in a good word for you. I've had a sponsor in my career once who her advocacy for me to put me up for a role that was actually quite a large jump for me at the time, accelerated my career onto a trajectory that I know that if I hadn't had that one event happen, I would not be where I am today. So just one can make a huge difference in what your experience is. And so I mentor a lot now, informally and through our formal programs. I'll pretty much anybody who wants to talk to me, I will try to make it work. And, I try to be a sponsor for others. And so I have helped in the past women who are qualified, should have been promoted, didn't quite, get there, gone and said, we need to put this person in the promotion cycle, or we need to give her this bigger assignment, and have been successful. And it's a little bit of my personal capital, but if people feel, particularly women, feel like they can move up and there's support for them, we're all just better for it. And it really doesn't hurt me at all. And if I'm in a place where these kind of things don't get accepted and you don't get the support, then that's probably somewhere I don't want to be anyway. So it's really, really important to find a sponsor if you can.
So I would say the same in the sense Kimbra mentioned mentorship is a passion, and it's a passion for me. And to start with the question of, did you have a mentor when I first started? Again, no, I didn't. And I've learned a lot in my 30 years in tech and in the professional world. So it was late in the game that I came to understand the benefit of not only having a mentor, but being a mentor. And it's like Bridget, I was probably like 10 years into my career before I actually had that and thought about that. But I also like to share that it's not that you should have one mentor, you should have many. And then the onus, I think, is on me as an individual. Like, it's for me to go out and find the mentor, and I'm looking for mentors who can help me. Like, there is no one person that is great at everything, and I'm looking at my areas of improvement. Like, okay, I'll give an example of one. I at Intuit, when I moved to the TurboTax team, I started working in a matrix organization where I had engineers working on initiatives that I was managing and in charge of, but they didn't report to me. And it was something that was really different for me. And so I found someone who worked in a matrix organization and did it well. And I reached out to her and I'm like, hey, can you just give me some pointers? And once you find that mentor, I started, and it's like, when you find them, you do need to be prepared, and I scheduled the regular meetings with her. I came prepared with questions. I actually took her feedback and said, oh, I tried this and this worked for me, or this didn't work for me. But identifying the mentor in the space that you need, and it may mean that you have multiple ones, but also on the flip side, I've also done mentoring, and I found that where I started my career, where I didn't want to deal with people or be with people. I wanted to be with computers. I started like, oh, this actually feels good. And I'm learning just as much from the mentee as I am sharing and teaching the mentor. So being a mentor. So I think it's very, very important. And I promote it a lot with my team. And I've actually started a program with my staff engineers. Being a group manager, I am responsible for many different areas. And so I have staff engineers that are working in their own little space. I started a mentoring program between my staff engineers, and I partnered them with each other. And then I require them to meet regularly and to actually write a mid-year review of their sessions for each other. So I kind of use that in my everyday work. And I know how it can help grow both people in the relationship.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, reverse mentorship's a big thing. And I found that too, even from leading our program, is the feedback from mentors, learning just as much from the mentees, and knowing it's a two-way street, right? You're both investing in yourself, in each other, and hopefully the value is found on either side. And something I just want to highlight based off of, your experiences and off of those dialed in on the call is, we hear a lot about building your own personal board of directors. And I just want to highlight the importance of that when you can look at it in a mentorship type of view or in a sponsorship type of view, but just making sure you have folks representing different aspects of groups that you're interested in, functions, career levels. When you think about just building out like what you want to learn, just always try to be conscious of making sure that folks who aren't like you are part of that feedback circle too, right? So when we think about progression or career growth, or maybe a specific technology you want to lean into and learn, those are the types of folks that I suggest reaching out to get mentorship from or to learn from. And when you bring diverse, aspects together, you really open your eyes to different areas of feedback and even superpowers you didn't know you had, because someone's coming in just with this other perspective. So that's something I really, really want to encourage to those dialed in on the phone is you don't have to specifically be in a one-on-one mentoring pair, right? You can learn from those around you. You can put together different groups of folks, and you can actually realize that maybe someone that you just go grab coffee with like consistently, that's actually like they're giving you advice and feedback, and natural mentorship can be built into your day-to-day. I think that's something that can make folks fearful when we think of a formal structured mentorship program or pair. It does not have to be that. It can be casual and it can be questions, and there's no right or wrong way to help others either learn or to ask questions for or of, right? So even for myself, when I was looking to grow my career internally here at Intuit, I'm not part of our tech ecosystem. I'm part of our people and places org, but I was looking to lean into and really still develop my skills within some of our tech rubric systems for program management. So I strategically sought out a mentor that was a technical program manager leader so that I could develop those skills, get insight on how she viewed me, how my programs and my scopes could be relatable to people within her system. So just being conscious and aware of the skills and how others could help influence or give feedback that could drive your own career is something to also think about. So I just wanted to add that tidbit. And I also loved how both of you mentioned this idea of sponsorship. So for those on the call, there are really three buckets when we talk about how we can learn from others. So there's mentorship, there's coaching, and there's sponsorship. And all three are very different, but they all do share many aspects as well, right? So there's the guidance and the advice that mentors give based on their own personal journey and their own experience. Then as both of you mentioned, the sponsorship, that's true advocating, right? That is taking action. It is action oriented. And coaching is more of that, I don't want to say cheerleader, but it's more of the insights and it's more short term, right? So like you can coach a team member through a specific program or through a specific sprint, and it's a clear start and end. So that's something else to keep in mind too, when we just talk about progression and how you can interact with teammates or people you look up to that you might want to ask for advice or you know, get some specific feedback or insight from. There's that sponsorship, and all of them are important. And the one key takeaway is that women are over mentored and under sponsored. So in an industry like technology, where representation is still, you know, this huge barrier, it's getting better and progress is being made, but we definitely need more advocating and action oriented details. So the sponsorship is hugely important for that career progression. And I'm happy to hear that both of you have had that in your careers, and knowing you and the leaders you are, I know you will be doing that for others along the way as well. So I loved hearing your journeys. And with that, we're ready to open it up to Q&A. Almost right on time. We have 15 minutes left of this session. I don't know if you want to come off of mute and ask a question, or if you have any comments. We're here to chat.
I have a question that was just messaged to me, and it says, how do you identify the areas that you want to be mentored on in the very initial years? So say you're out of college, 1 to 2 years of work experience.
I'll start with my experience. For areas that I want to be mentored on is typically are areas that I don't feel that I'm good at, or I feel uncomfortable. And to me, that's a sign that I need some help from somebody else to either help me build the confidence that I do actually need it, or help me identify the gaps that I have. So, you know, like for myself, I had some experiences earlier in my career where I wasn't very confident presenting to people. And I asked someone for help. And because I knew that if I wanted to move forward, I had to be able to speak in forums with leaders and, you know, help them, have them understand what I'm saying and have them, you know, believe in what I say. So it was something that would give me anxiety. So I talked to someone who was good at it and said, can you help me? And they gave me advice and helped me learn, you know, how to be better prepared. So for me, it's what am I not good at is what I go look for.
I think that's the first place to start. The other thing that I have done is as I gather feedback, just like I gather feedback for the engineers who work for me, I gather feedback on myself. And usually I like to, this sounds weird, but situations where I haven't done well. If I had a project that didn't go very well, I would go back and ask for my partners, my customers, the engineers that I work with for feedback. And then I take that feedback and say, okay, maybe this is something I actually need to be, get some help with, and to using the feedback to also help identify areas where you can look for mentoring.
Yeah, and Intuit's such a highly driven feedback culture. And so if that's not something you're used to, I would suggest starting to get used to it, because being able to give and receive feedback, no matter what company you're at, no matter what type of role you're in, is super important, especially because it takes you outside of your own view, right? And others view your work and your strengths in different ways than you view it yourself. So that's so important. And I plus one everything that that both Bridget and Crystal have said. And if you're newer to your career and you don't know where to start, sometimes rubrics and like your job description is a great place to look at, and you can see what you'll be evaluated on, and you can self-identify either things you're passionate about and want to lean into, or those areas of opportunity, right? So if you don't know what those are yet, hopefully you can at least recognize some of your strengths, and even leaning in and developing those strengths are something that you can work on with your mentor. So for me, I'm super extroverted and I talk a lot, but but I can identify, that I want to be in these situations and, moderate panels, but I know what I have to work on once I'm in this venue. And for me, it's talking slower, it's being more present. And, that's something that I can work on with someone who I admire or that I think is a really good speaker. And that can go for any type of skill. Thank you for the question. Any other questions? No. Don't be shy. Okay. Well, maybe.
I have one more question. Do mentors always need to come from within the company, or where else could you find one?
I would say definitely not. As you're building your network, you could have mentors in other companies, people, friends, people in your past teachers. So mentors are not, they are not intended to be only from one cultural perspective, like your company. So I would say no, and they shouldn't only come from within your company. I think they should be a little bit broader. And so there are a number of ways to actually get mentors who are outside of your company as well. There's a lot of user groups, there's a lot of hackathons, things like that, where you meet other people in the industry and the area where you can start working with and getting mentors.
One thing that's nice sometimes about mentors that are not directly in your workspace is that they are not in the middle of what you're dealing with. And so they can often have a better and more objective perspective of what's going on, because they don't know the details. And so they'll ask questions that are very clarifying and not colored by what is the culture or what is the situation at hand. So actually having people who are a little disconnected, I think, can actually bring a fair amount of clarity, because it's easy to get caught up in the minutia of what's happening in your day-to-day.
I love that. And there's organizations both locally and just globally that provide mentorship for women in tech and women in STEM specifically. So organizations like anitaB.org, I know for a fact they run a mentorship program, and that connects, women in technology across the world. Locally here in San Diego, Athena, who is in service to women in STEM, they have a few programs for mentorship and for leadership development as well. And you can probably find similar types of opportunities from Women Who Code. What else? A lot of the meetup groups that are both local but have global chapters. So that's definitely a way to not only, like we referenced earlier, building your network and starting to develop relationships who you can naturally build mentor type relationships with, but some of these organizations have formal and structured programs that you can opt into, and could be an easy way just to test the waters and start to meet new folks. Let's see. Any other questions? If not, I have a closing question. That was one we didn't get to that I think would be interesting for Bridget and Crystal to answer. And that's how technology has changed throughout your career and maybe how the role of women has changed within it.
Well, that's it's so much and so drastically. I can say when I started in college, computer science, I was just one of two in the whole computer science program at the time. And when I started at Intuit, I was one of 18 of our DBAs and only 4 of 120 of us in the IT department. I still remember their names, and some of them are still people that I mentor. So in that time and space, well, along with the actual technologies that we were using have changed and things have come and gone, but also we've grown in the diversity of the technology space. And so we have gained a lot of experiences and knowledge from those who have come in. So I think it's just been, it's totally drastic from when I first started.
Oh yeah, Intuit itself is now at 30% women in technical roles globally. So, yeah. So that's a huge change too. What about you, Bridget?
So I would say that, you know, from the perspective of women, it's been fairly consistent for me. You know, my first role was probably about 20–25% women, which I realize now is unusual. And in the companies that I've worked at, there have always been a few women that are in leadership roles, not enough, but there's always been a trickling. At Intuit, we do have more women in tech roles, and you know, it's the first time I've seen a woman in a C-suite role. So, you know, I don't think I would have expected that when I was first coming out of school. Our CTO is a female. In terms of tech, you know, I was just kind of laughing because, you know, when I first started working, we didn't have computers at our desks. We had computer rooms we would go to, and you would sit down at a desktop or a terminal and do your work there, whether it was writing a document or writing some code. It was very, very different. We were not connected. You know, for a while I had to carry a pager because we were getting ready to launch a satellite. And so I had to carry the pager, and that was like a big deal. So, and all the things that I came out knowing, you know, in terms of tech tools, all gone, you know, and it's all, you know, all completely new. So I think the way that we work, more connected, the tech we use is much more advanced, but fundamentally, the way that we solve problems is still the same. You know, the problems, you know, critical thinking, like Crystal said, is critical thinking. And so I just have more tools now, and I have a larger, like, open source community and database to help me be faster in making decisions. But it's, you know, definitely different from that perspective.
Thank you for sharing that. Tonight, I don't know if you want to have anything to close us out with, but I definitely just wanted to thank Bridget and Crystal for sharing their journey and their advice on not only mentorship, but just things to think about when going through your career. And we're super happy that we had this chance to connect with you who joined. And as always, if you want to learn more about Intuit, you can visit our site or connect with Bridget, Crystal, or myself on LinkedIn. We're always open to chatting. And yeah, that's all I have.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, say thank you again. And then also there is a short questionnaire in the chat. I don't know if everybody got it, but if you have a few minutes to fill that out, I can also email it out if you have to go. We will have this video available in the next few days. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thanks for having us.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Thank you.